Ooh. Hello and welcome to another episode of Anything But Authentic, where I make crazy, unique food that is anything but authentic. On today's episode, I'm going to be making red wine cheesecake. Yes, cheesecake with red wine infused into it. Now, the inspiration of this recipe came from the idea of wine and cheese. I mean, wine and cheese is such a classic combo. So if wine and cheese always goes together, why isn't there a red wine cheesecake yet? So that's what we're gonna do today. So the one thing for this recipe is, since the red wine is gonna be the star of the dish, I highly recommend you to get a bottle of red wine that is something that you would enjoy drinking. So what I'm using for this particular recipe is a Cabernet Sauvignon that I got from a local winery that I'm personally a member of. This is not sponsored by them, I just really enjoy their wine. It's called YAAAAS. It's called YAAAAS Winery, and the reason why I'm using this particular Cabernet Sauvignon is because of the taste of the wine. So this bottle of red wine has ripe aromas of dark cherry, black plum, and fresh blackberries with a hint of cocoa and vanilla. Since cheesecake has more of a vanilla and fruity taste, this particular Cabernet is perfect for it. Whatever red wine you decide to choose for this recipe, make sure you know the wine a little bit, or at least read the description, just so you can get a bottle of red wine that complements the cheesecake. With that said, let's get started. Okay, first we're gonna start with making the crust. Since I'm making a red wine cheesecake, I'm using chocolate-based cookies as my crust. Now, why is that? Chocolate works better when you try to pair it with red wine. But if you have any other cookies, feel free to use that as well. But what I have here is around 30 thin Oreo cookies that I separated. I literally just split the Oreo cookies in half and just scrape out the filling. Don't worry though, I'm not gonna waste the filling, and this is good stuff. I'm gonna use this for a cheesecake base. But I just wanna show that that's what I did. Basically, 30 thin Oreos would yield around 1.5 cups of the crumbs. So if you want to replace Oreo cookies with something else, make sure you get enough to make around 1.5 cups of cookie crumbs. So first what I'm gonna do is gonna put these Oreo cookies into the food processor and just pulse it very finely. Alright, the cookies are nice and pulsed into crumbs. So now what I really need to do is add around 1/4 cup of butter that I melted, or around half a stick. Just put it straight in like this. Just mix it around. Alright, so now it's well combined. Now what you want to do is kind of use your finger to kind of feel the mixture a little bit. What you want to feel is basically a feeling of wet sand. If that's what you feel, then that's perfect. Then afterward, what we're going to do with this cookie butter mixture is that we're going to press it down to a spring-form pan that I lined with a parchment paper that I cut out into a circular shape to fit the bottom of this. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put it straight in and just press it all down. All right, so now this is looking good. I'm gonna set it aside while I move on to making the cheesecake part of the cheesecake. All right, let's make the cheesecake or cream cheese portion of the cheesecake. So since I'm making a red wine cheesecake, I'm gonna use a no-bake method just so that it retains the alcohol and kind of make it boozy and fun. So what I have here is around 4 tablespoons of water and 3 packets of clear gelatin, or around 0.75 ounce of gelatin powder. So what you wanna do is just slowly sprinkle into the water, kind of whisk at the same time. Just whisk it until it mixes well. Now, the thing about working with gelatin is that it's so easy to work with, but there's so many mistakes that you can make. So from my personal experience, one of the shortcuts that I did that I highly recommend you to not do is that once I try to make a shortcut by just adding the gelatin powder into warm water. Theoretically, that can work, but the thing is, when you put gelatin powder into warm water, it will clump and it will not separate. Why is that bad? Well, when you make anything gelatin, you want it to be smooth. So any clumps at all is just terrible. So this is one of those things where I highly recommend you to just follow the procedure and not make any shortcuts. So yeah, just let it sit for around 5 minutes and then we'll move on from there. All right, it's been 5 minutes. So what I'm gonna do now, I'm just gonna put it in the microwave for around 30 seconds to activate the gelatin. All right, after cooking this in the microwave for around 30 seconds, what you want to do now is just kind of pour it into a bowl with around half a cup of red wine, any red wine of your choosing, and just kind of mix it around. All right, the gelatin mixture and the red wine is well mixed now. Now this step is optional, but I think it's totally worth it. What I'm gonna do now is gonna strain this mixture just to make sure that in case there were any lumps, it will get filtered out by the strainer. So just put it through a strainer like so. This is looking good. Now I'm gonna move on to making the rest of the cheesecake portion. All right, now we move on to the main part of this recipe. So now basically what we want to do is we want to blend everything here. What I have here is around 1 1/4 cups of heavy cream. I'm just gonna add to the food processor. And then 1 1/4 cups of cream cheese, or around 5 ounces of cream cheese. And then this is the filling from around 30 thin Oreos, which makes up for around half a cup's worth. And then 6 tablespoons of sugar, half a teaspoon of salt, of course, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and the red wine gelatin mixture. And then just blend it together. All right, this is pretty nice and well blended. So what you want to do now is literally just scrape all of this on top of the cookie butter mixture that we pressed down earlier, like so. Then just try your best to just spread them out evenly. All right, this is looking great. Now what you want to do is just kind of pop it in the fridge and let it set for at least 2 hours before moving on to the next step. All right, it's almost a 2-hour mark. I'm gonna move on to making the red wine gelatin layer. This step is optional since this layer is gonna have a heavier taste of red wine. If you don't care too much for the boozy red wine layer, feel free to skip this. But since we're already here making red wine cheesecake, might as well just add a thin boozy layer on top just for that added bonus, right? So what I have here is around 2 tablespoons of water along with 1 packet of gelatin, which is around 0.25 ounce. So I'm just gonna add it to 2 tablespoons of water and just mix it well. And then just let it sit for around 5 minutes and then pop it in the microwave for around 30 seconds. And then I'll see you back here in a little bit. All right, so the gelatin is looking good. So what you wanna do now is add it to around 1 cup of red wine, along with 1 1/2 tablespoons of sugar and a pinch of salt. Give it a little whisk. Then you want to pour it straight into the cheesecake that's been cooled. I'm going to strain this red wine gelatin mixture through a very fine strainer just to filter out all of the clumps just in case it happens. It's a lot better that way. As you can see, I didn't do a pretty good job earlier to level out all of the red wine cream cheese layer, but that's okay. Cooking is about trial and errors, and as long as it tastes great, it tastes great. Now, this needs to go back to the fridge and let it set for around 2 to 4 hours. So I'll see you back here in around 4 hours. All right, it's been 4 hours. I don't know if you can tell, but there's no more light coming out of the window behind me. So yeah, this is a pretty long recipe, but a lot of it is really just, about waiting for the cheesecake to set. But it's a pretty simple recipe in my opinion. What I did here is basically I just took out a slice and kind of made it a tiny fancy. I'm pretty excited to try it. But before I dig in, don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoyed this video. With that said, let's dig in. Ooh, that is good. That is really good. The red wine gelatin layer definitely added that booziness to it, and it definitely gives you that tiny kick. Since you can see that there's just a tiny layer of it, so you're not getting too much of that boozy red wine flavor. But the thing is, the red wine was also in the cream cheese mixture, so you get that taste, but it's not boozy at all. And that hint of Oreo cookies definitely complements the red wine flavor, and it's just, I can't believe this is not a thing yet. Hope you enjoy grubbing with me, Guber, and I hope to see you here next time on Anything But Authentic.